Hello and welcome to Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. Tonight we'll be talking about differences in the endocannabinoid system of sperm from fertile and infertile men. Question, could Viagra and Cialis help boost colon cancer survival? And doctors warning against a dangerous TikTok trend which could cause burns and scarring down there. So, welcome back, my brother.
Welcome back to you.
Interesting news night tonight. What have we got first? First, please explain to our viewers what endocannabinoid systems are.
Yeah, it's one of
Sounds
those...
like a Star Wars thing.
It does, doesn't it? But it's one of those, I think, truly wonderful aspects of being human. That we have chemicals in our body that come ordinarily from plants. As many of you already know, cannabis, which is the proper term for what people refer to as marijuana or weed, is not only a pervasive natural substance out in the world, but it's also one of the key chemicals to how our bodies function. We have two main kinds of these cannabinoid receptors, and one group of them are completely involved in all of our metabolic functions, all of our organ functions, and the other population we can see are pretty much involved in our immunity, right? and our immune responses. So we also know that sperm has these receptors for essentially THC, the active ingredient in cannabis, as many of you know. There are receptors on sperm for, and it's actually not exactly THC, but anandamide, which is the sort of human natural chemical, and that's the receptor that THC uses. We know on sperm.
Interesting trivia from our guest this week on Sex Talk, Dr. Hitton Soni, taught me that anandamide, that endogenous cannabinoid, was named for Ananda from the Sanskrit term for bliss.
Bliss, that's right. So anandamide, which
our
is
own natural brain chemical, right? This is not something someone buys and smokes or consumes.
Exactly. It is the reason why you get high with THC. That is the receptor. Remember, it's not about chemicals, it's about receptors. Right? And anything that has an effect has to have a receptor. It has to have a place to go. A very simple principle in pharmacology. And we even have these THC receptors on sperm. There are receptors on the head of sperm, on the body of the sperm, and on the tail, the junction of the tail and the body of sperm.
Wow.
And this research is really looking at, and it's not complete, we can't come up with definitive information, but there seems to be a significant difference in how the sperm receptors are processing this anandamide. And we see a difference in how those receptors are working in men who are fertile and men who are infertile. And it seems that in men who are dealing with infertility, their sperm are kind of over-processing the anandamide, right? That THC-like chemical. Now, is it simple or simplistic enough to say that if you are infertile, it'll probably help you if you smoked weed? It's not that simple.
But it's interesting to think back when we were in high school, a lot of the, say no to drugs rhetoric said that if you smoked weed, it would make you infertile.
Right. And there are still people that say it'll lower your sperm count.
Right.
But
they also talked about tight underwear and bell bottoms and the baby crash that never happened.
That's right. That's right.
They predicted we'd all be sterile because we wore tight.
That's right, in the 70s.
Now, of course, everyone's wearing baggy pants that are falling down their asses. Nobody's
and actually,
infertility.
People are less fertile than ever before.
Interesting.
Ironically, but it is very interesting when we see that fertility and these kinds of cannabinoid systems are kind of intimately connected, right? So we don't exactly know how, but it's a really interesting area of research to continue to pursue.
I believe we've just barely scratched the surface on understanding cannabinoids, both endogenous, naturally occurring, and those from cannabis plants. And I think the potential will reveal itself to be huge.
Indeed. Indeed.
So our next story is another interesting one, another one of these kind of like accidental discoveries, I suppose, or I guess folks have been researching this for some time, but we've known for a while that this class of drugs known as PDE5 inhibitors, including Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, the 2 or 3 other newer versions of basically variations on Viagra, were not initially studied as the erectile dysfunction drugs they are known to be. They were being evaluated for their effect on cardiac muscle, in particular angina pectoris, when people get clutching pain in their heart, like a muscle cramp in the heart. And in some of the clinical trials, they had lots of old guys who were frankly surprised seeing things happen that they hadn't seen in a while.
These journal entries.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Viagra was born. And of course, no one at Pfizer Pharmaceutical needs Viagra because they're all running around erect all day long with all the money they're making from, first from Viagra, now from the vaccine, from the COVID vaccine. But this fascinating new study, again, I'm guessing one of these like, ooh, look what's happening here. Researchers in Sweden found that men who take these PDE5 inhibitors or these erectile dysfunction drugs have a rather significant decrease in the risk of death from colon cancer.
That's right. And there's also some preliminary studies that have shown that these can help prevent colorectal cancer. So again, this is really fascinating stuff. Now, I also want to be, quickly throw in here that this is really what's referred to as an observational study. We have to be very, very clear that we cannot relate this to an actual phenomenon yet. But again, the potential that's here. So again, if you're dealing with colon cancer or colorectal cancer, don't go out and start taking Viagra. It's likely not going to give you the result that you want. But in terms of trying to pursue this and understand how these mechanisms work, because there is an element that we've known for a while, especially with colorectal cancer, that these drugs, these PDE5 inhibitors, can actually have an effect of inhibiting tumor growth. Now, we don't know to what degree, we don't know how consistent that really is, but this is, again, this great potential that hopefully will pay off if we continue to see this work being done.
Yeah, very good. And our third story is, well, this is why we have to have these stories in a world of social media, right? As we read earlier, the headline says, docs warn against a dangerous TikTok trend that can cause burns and scarring down there. Right.
Now, TikTok has been a great forum for a lot of, what people like to call life hacks. That's kind of what people are looking at, looking for shortcuts, especially with COVID and people sheltering in and all the distancing. People aren't going out to spas. They aren't going out to see their estheticians as much as they used to beforehand. So looking for these sort of do-it-yourself kind of strategies.
So here's some advice for us. If any of you are thinking about doing at-home DIY waxing, procedure known as sugaring, sounds like a prison thing. Right? Mixing sugar and lemon with boiling water to create a sticky solution that will pull hair from the skin. There's a lot of citric acid in lemons. And apparently this is...
But before, not just citric acid, but you also use the term boiling water. Let's not gloss over that part of it.
Let's not combine boiling water and citric acid with genital skin. Right?
In fact, where do we see that combination? Right? People, especially women, using boiling water, lemon juice, and sugar. We see that in prison, right? Isn't that something that's often referred to as prison napalm?
Right. Oh,
right? So if something is called prison napalm, I think that's a good indication that you don't want it on your body.
Don't use it for waxing.
Right.
Yes.
So, two things that I would say to that. Number one, aside from don't do it. The first thing is if we're basically social distancing and we're going through all of this, sheltering in and staying in place and curtailing a lot of social interactions, leave the hair alone.
Let it grow.
Yeah, it's you're not going to be a bad person. Nothing negative will happen to you if you have hair on your body. Right. The other thing is, if you really do have a problem with hair on your body, stick to professionally made products.
Yeah,
stick to things.
Go to
Order it
TikTok.
on Amazon.
Right.
Right. Don't just whip it up in your kitchen because you think it's a life hack. Right? And everything that's a life hack just automatically sounds cooler. It's not. Women have been getting these pretty nasty burns in some very sensitive parts of their body. Mm-hmm. Right? So again, if you're not cool with hair, then at least buy a legitimate, reputable, proven product.
I did see a new commercial this week, and I thought, hey, there's progress. I can't remember the brand, but one of those companies that makes razors for women is actually advertising a razor specifically. They use the P word, pubic.
Pubic.
They're selling razors for pubic regions. That's progress. Right?
Nice.
In fact, we could say pubic on television is progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for our final piece, we like to end on something that we call poetic justice. Mm-hmm. And in our poetic justice, we like to honor hypocrites.
Well, honor.
Right? Well, recognize. Right?
Call out.
In our own way, yeah, calling out. It's kind of honoring. Mm-hmm. I like to think of sort of on the level of the honor of having somebody like Don Rickles insult you.
Well, okay. That was done out of love.
Right, exactly. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. So this is not like Don Rickles insulting you. We don't like you if we're calling you out,
Right.
And for really good reason. So let me start with the headline of this particular piece that we're going to shout out. It's called "Not Kidding. A male doctor refused to tie my tubes because, quote, a woman shouldn't make that decision without a man." And needless to say, she was furious. This is something that happened, this was in her past. She was 27 years old, Sarah Jo Baskin, and something that she had been posting on TikTok, so we can't give her name on that. But when she was 27 years old, she had what we can basically say was a life-threatening pregnancy.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult. She and her baby almost died. And after she came through that, she decided in no uncertain terms, that's it. I ain't having no more kids. And she went to a doctor, right, after almost being killed by labor and delivery. And she went to her doctor to basically have a tubal ligation, more commonly referred to as having her tubes tied, so that she would not have to worry about fertility anymore. And when she went to her doctor, basically her doctor refused to do it. And he told her that he believes that it's best that a man and a woman make that decision together, and that he thought she shouldn't make that decision by herself. Now, she was baffled by that refusal. And she basically asked him, what does that have to do with anything? It's my body, and I want to have my tubes tied. And her doctor basically said, sorry, I'm not tying your tubes. I don't think a woman should make that decision.
Wow.
Now, I mean, I don't think it gets any more sexist. I don't think a doctor could be any bigger an asshole to a patient than something like that. We don't have this doctor's name, but we would like to pretty much call him out anyway, and all male doctors in particular who do and say things like that to their female patients. This is kind of an offshoot of what we've done on Sex Talk with the Siegel brothers a while back with our guest Amy Gilliland, and the concept of obstetric violence.
Yeah.
Right? How many male doctors are really abusing their female patients? And I think this is an example of that. So for all of you male doctors who like to tell your female patients what they are supposed to and not supposed to do with their bodies, we give you this week's Poetic Justice shout out. And we like to give the customary salute, right?
Bronx cheer.
So that is to you. And to you, we thank you for watching and tuning in once again to Sex in the News.